Alright, there was an incident when I was working as a gate guard for the Air Force at Barksdale Air Force Base in Louisiana, where there was a retired officers get-together, and all kinds of people mostly retired people, were gathering. They were getting on to the base, and not all of them had the special stickers on their cars to get in, so I had to check credentials. So there was this retired lady, I think she was a wife of a general, I found out later, who was just, it felt like she was like giving me some attitude or something. She was just like demanding just to be let on to the base, because they were going to an officers club that was on the base, and she was just like, I need to get going, don't you slow me up. And she was just waving this paperwork at me and just being, I felt being really rude. So I quick checked the paperwork, and it looked similar to what I've seen, so I let her on. And then I had to say the remarks, don't you go to the officers club with that attitude. And she drove off in a huff. She was kind of like, she showed a surprise to me that I passed off as nothing. I assumed that she had the attitude, and that's kind of how she was just gonna naturally be. But then it was a hot day too. This is Louisiana. I might have been prone to making more mistakes in that kind of heat and sun just beating down on me all day. But either way, it worked its way up the chain of command at the Air Force Base. At the end, and it wasn't until at the end of my shift where the sergeant, like not even my supervisor, not my supervisor, like it's like the superintendent, he called in all the gate guards for that day and asked if anybody had any kind of choice words with somebody. And I didn't quite know what he was talking about. He sat about 5 of us down or so, four gate guards or so, and then he repeated the words about what I said to that lady, and then that's when I admitted that was me. I said that, so he was like, okay, everybody else can leave. And he's like, well, you're in a lot of trouble for this. So I was put on notice, and my supervisor was, not happy when he was found out, but they didn't really know what they wanted to do to me. They wanted me to answer. They wanted me to answer to a colonel. And this colonel was like he was like the first in charge for the law enforcement, something like that. I forget exactly, but they wanted me to answer to him. Okay. And I needed to be in my dress blues. Okay. and this all happened within a few days. So I needed to put on my dress blues, and I didn't have the like, I think I was just a stripe. I think I only was like a stripe in, maybe two stripes, but I think it was more one stripe. And I didn't have that stripe sewn onto my dress blues, and I couldn't get it like sewed on in time. I didn't know how to sew. I wish I had the speedy stitcher skills that I do now. And I had a roommate who did have his stripe on, but actually he had two stripes and I only had one. So it was, and we were about the same size. Yeah, he had two stripes, but he should have had those two stripes sewn onto his dress blues, but he only had the one stripe. Whereas I didn't have any stripes, but I needed a one stripe. So he was like, "You can use my dress blues." But he was just a slight bit taller, so the sleeves were longer. You know, these suits have to be perfectly tailored, and so it looked a little larger for me. But I used that suit. I met up with the colonel, and I was scared. He had to. It's like we were going to his building, his office, and I was driven there in a patrol car with my supervisor, and my supervisor saw the colonel like approaching, so he was like, "Get out of the car," and I like got out, stood at attention, and the colonel just only drove up, and then just had some words to say, saying that the situation really got out of hand. It was overblown, um, and that was it. He was almost sounding like he brushed it off, and and he pretty much did brush it off, because I found out later from my higher up supervisor, not my immediate supervisor, that he announced his retirement. That was it. And that supervisor said that it was a tech sergeant. He said that I pretty much caused this colonel to retire, because he just, it was retirees that were angry with the law enforcement, and he didn't punish me. I don't believe he requested any punishment. But afterward, I made a confession to my immediate supervisor that the the jacket I had wasn't mine. I just had to say something. I was just maybe nervous stutterings, and I told him that it was my roommates. So suddenly, like the next day, he made a request for inspection of our dress blues uniforms, and it was like I immediately got my stripes sewn on to my sleeves at that point. But my roommate, he was caught. And all he did was complain and say that it's stupid that he asked, that the supervisor demanded this, and he just something broke in my roommate. He lost he kind of, he got so angry at that situation, and we were both 19. We're both young guys, but pretty much he talked himself into just getting like kicked out of the military, and he was gone. He left. He got like a dishonorable discharge. I never kept in touch with him. I don't know what happened to him afterward, but man, I felt kind of bad after that. I used his uniform, and then I turned him in. He was generous enough to let me use his uniform, me being behind on my the sewing and keeping my rank up to date, and him being behind himself. But I turned him in, and my supervisor later said that all he had to do is at least just say that his uniform was at the alterations or something. But instead, my roommate just said it was a stupid demand, and he couldn't he couldn't fathom why it was all of a sudden requested of us all. But this military base was a nuclear base, so the demands are higher. They said if you ever had to even take an aspirin for anything, you're on a drug, pretty much. An aspirin is a drug that influences how you think, and they'll relieve you of your gun if you had to. A weapon, they'll relieve you of your weapon if you had to take even an aspirin until you sober up, because they want completely sober, sharp people working around these nukes and all the military equipment that transports them and everything. Cops, from cops to engineers and all that. So it was a very tight base. But yeah, my experience there, yeah, I was told to pretty much I was a cause of two people to leave the military abruptly, and then I was close to getting at least my upper supervisor was going to give me a low rating for my my review. Like every 6 months they'll review you or something, and I was gonna get a low review, I was told, but I was quick about requesting a second base. As soon as I found out that we could request a second base in less than a year, I signed up, and I was like, just anywhere, and I chose Okinawa, Japan, just somewhere that this is places that would accept me right away. And I just doing that because I didn't really I didn't like Louisiana very much, and that was a bad choice by itself at the beginning. And Okinawa was kind of a bad choice, especially 3 years for a single guy. I did not have any romantic relationships, that's for sure. But I got a approval to go to that base, and when my supervisor found out about that, he said he was gonna give me a low score for my review, but he said he would hold off on that. Instead, he would defer it. He said he would have given me a low one, but he said he would defer it for the next space, since it was I was at Barksdale for such a short period of time, so that was like a stay of execution for me, for enraging a retired old lady on her way to an officers' ball.